So, how do you use diagnostic testing for the digital SAT and for the ACT? That is exactly what we're going to talk about in this video called The Do's and Don'ts of Diagnostic Testing. My name is Kristina of Ivy Lounge Test Prep, and for the last 15 years, I've helped high schoolers all around the globe dramatically raise their SAT and ACT test scores and ultimately land spots at the colleges of their dreams. So, we are going to discuss two different things today. The first is, why do you need to even do this thing called diagnostic testing? Like, what is it? Why do you need to do it? And then I'm going to go through a list of 8 do's and 8 don'ts so you can get the most accurate assessment possible. So let's dive in. So there's a common proverb, I'm sure you've heard it. It's the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? And it's true of everything, but it's especially true when it comes to test prep and your journey of getting the score you want on the SAT or the ACT. So before you can start walking down the road, if you will, that ends in your like amazing SAT or ACT score and ultimately admission into your dream school, right? There's one thing you need to do first, and that is figure out where your current abilities lie in the first place. In other words, you need to know what score on the SAT or ACT you would earn if you were to take the test literally today. So like, well, why should you take a diagnostic test? So glad you asked. So there are basically 4 reasons that you need to take a diagnostic SAT or ACT test before you start your test prep journey. So number 1 is you likely need to figure out which of the 2 tests you need to take in the first place. To continue our hiking metaphor, you don't want to start walking south when you really needed to be walking north. So like, you don't want to start studying for one of these tests when actually the other one would be better for you. Yes, I have a quiz you can do to figure that out, but diagnostic tests are even better. So number 2, you need to understand what your baseline score even is so you can properly assess how much further you need to go to ultimately get your target score, which is that illustrious score that we need to get to open the door to your dream college list. Okay. Number 3. So we need to have a clear starting point so that you can notice and rejoice when you make improvements upon what your baseline score is. So when we revel in these small victories, like, wow, I increased like 30 points in the math in just a few weeks, like even these little wins are much needed morale boosters that will help you sustain the marathon that is test prep. And finally, our 4th reason why we need to do diagnostic testing is that we need to determine what your strengths and what your weaknesses are for your test of choice so that we can focus on improving your weaknesses and not waste your time on the things you already really know well. Does that make sense? So because of all these reasons, you need to take a diagnostic SAT or the ACT or both if you're still choosing between the two. So you might already like believe hook, line, and sinker that diagnostic testing is a good idea. However, there are a lot of ways that it could actually go wrong or things you could do to sort of like mess up your diagnostic testing experience and give you an inaccurate score. And then this whole endeavor is kind of a waste of time. And then we also wasted practice tests, right? Even worse, you might get an inaccurate idea of where you're already at with your test of choice. But that's not going to happen to you, my friend, because you have a seasoned test prep expert in your corner, yes, me, to make sure that you do this the right way and so that you can get information that you can actually trust and then base your junior and senior year testing timeline on. So without further ado, we are going to talk about the 8 do's and 8 don'ts of diagnostic testing. Now, if you're new to my universe, again, my name is Kristina of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. I help students land spots at their dream colleges by helping them drastically raise their SAT and ACT test scores and write compelling college applications. And so before we go into our do's and don'ts, I have a quick question for you, and that is, do you still need to do a diagnostic test for the SAT or the ACT? If so, write it in the comments below. I want to know who I'm talking to. If you've already taken one of these diagnostic tests, how was that experience for you? I'm curious to know if you think it accurately reflected your abilities. while you're at it, just hit those like and subscribe buttons. And then that way, each week, when my next video about the SAT, the ACT, or college application essays drops, then you will be the first to know the updates, the tips, and the tricks. So now we're on to diagnostic testing do's and don'ts. So the first thing, do take an official practice test. So I have linked all of those tests for you very conveniently in one handy place. It's called my diagnostic testing page, and it's in the show notes. So if you are an ACT person, then it will provide a link to it to the actstudent.org's website of their current diagnostic test that is open for everyone for free for the new format for the ACT. For the digital SAT, the College Board doesn't make its old tests available, but what they do have are 7 practice tests in the Blue Book app. And so the diagnostic testing page will walk you through exactly like all the things you need to do, like creating your College Board account, downloading the Blue Book app, and even tell you like directions of how to actually do your diagnostic test. So again, it's ivloungetestprep.com/diagnostic tests. Now, here's what you're not going to do. You will not do a test written by a test prep company like the Princeton Review or Kaplan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now these tests might be modeled off of the genuine article, but they're not the real ones. It's kind of like when you go to karaoke and you put in Good Luck Babe by Chappell Rowan. You're not getting the real Chappell Rowan, you're getting in the style of Chappell Rowan. So the reason we don't really want to do ones created by companies that are not the College Board for the SAT or actstudent.org for the ACT is because the mixes of easy and hard questions might be off, the balance of certain math topics or the concentration of how many modifier question versus punctuation questions in English might be off. That's why we actually want to use the real official practice tests and not ones that are created in the style of the SAT or the ACT. Also, the scoring curves might not exactly be accurate. Okay, so another do. We do want to take a full-length ACT or full-length SAT with all the sections in order. What we don't want to do is take a shortened version of the ACT, like a pre-ACT or the PSAT, which might be the same in length, but might have less sophisticated questions. Not exactly the same thing. So when you do a shortened version of one of the tests, or you just do part of a test, then it's like cycling for a mile and then assuming that you would complete your Tour de France in the same pace per mile. So these standardized tests, they're evaluating your content knowledge and your grasp of strategy, sure, but they're also measuring your stamina, right? Your ability to be accurate when you're tired and bored. So you want to do full length only. So you do want to do your diagnostic SAT or ACT in the morning to stimulate real testing conditions. Now, you don't want to take your diagnostic SAT or ACT in the afternoon or the evening. You're not going to be doing the real SAT or ACT in the afternoon or the evening, right? And your alertness can vary drastically at different times of the day. So it's not a fair comparison to do your diagnostic at 2 p.m. when you're firing on all cylinders and then assume you do as well as 8 a.m. when you're normally not a morning person. Make sense? Do time your diagnostic SAT or ACT in accordance to your time allotment. So if you have regular time, then you're going to follow the directions on the test. If you have extended time, which is time and a half or double time or even triple time, then you're going to time yourself in accordance to those specific requirements. So if you need more help with this, I actually write it on the diagnostic tests page that I linked to below. Now, you're not going to take your diagnostic test untimed. So this is not going to reflect your true ability on the test at all. So why? You just wasted a test. Another do get a parent, a sibling, or a friend to time you if you're doing the ACT. Or If you don't have like a Blue Book compatible device to use to do the digital SAT and you need to do one of the paper or linear non-adaptive SATs as a practice test, then you would also do that, right? If you live close to a testing center, like maybe you could pay to take a diagnostic test there and have a proctor time you. Now, if you're taking one of these 7 digital SAT practice tests in the Blue Book app, the app times you automatically, so you don't need a third-party timer for that one. Don't time yourself. That is if you're doing a paper version of either test. So it can be surprisingly nerve-wracking to have someone else holding a stopwatch and yell time, even if that person is like a family member. And we need to replicate those same nerves to get a sense of how test anxiety might affect you. So it's better to know now if you're going to freeze like a deer in headlights than to find out in the middle of like your actual ACT for the first time. And if you do in fact struggle with test day jitters, I have a really awesome testing confidence course that I'll also link to in the show notes. Another do complete the entire test in one sitting, unless you have special accommodations that allows you to like split your test up over multiple days. And then if you do, you would follow those instructions. Now, don't split up the test and take like a section today and a section or two tomorrow, and then maybe one the next day. Remember, diagnostic testing isn't to find out how well you do on the science section. It's to see how accurately you're going to do the science section after you've already done the English, then the math, then the reading sections, right? It's not about a section in a vacuum. It's about that section or that module after you've already done a bunch of other tasks beforehand. Do take test breaks exclusively when you would take a real break on the real test. So if you're doing the digital SAT and you're using the Blue Book app, the Blue Book app will administer this break automatically, so good for you. For the others, my diagnostic test page will tell you when and for how long to take your break. Don't take a break whenever you feel like it, unless, of course, you get testing accommodations and one of them is like unlimited breaks. Finally, do take your diagnostic tests in physical conditions resembling real ones as much as possible. So what this might mean is make sure you have a quiet environment. There's no distractions or screens around you, no talking. You're sitting at a desk or at a table. There's no food or drinks. What you're not going to do is do your diagnostic test in a comfortable environment. So this will be nothing and feel nothing like a real test. So it won't get you to mimic your actions on a real test day. So what this might mean is don't take this test lying down on your bed, right? No eating or drinking, no interruptions or taking extra breaks, no phones, no screens, no talking to anyone else. So that, my friends, was quite the list, wasn't it? So I hope it gives you a sense of how to make the most productive possible use of diagnostic tests that are available to you. Because remember, we have a limited resource of real, actual, new format ACTs and digital SATs at our disposal, and we do not want to waste them. So if you're thirsty for more info about diagnostic testing, I actually provide full instructions and give links to official actual diagnostic tests for both the SAT and the ACT on my diagnostic testing page in the link below. And if you're just confused about this whole standardized testing process and you want a guide on how to do all of it to get ready for college, I have another resource for you. It is called my Fail-Proof College Prep Plan. So check it out in the link below.